are some results.
What? What is that?
Okay, so
Why is this talking to me?
Okay, you guys are good to go whenever you're ready.
Good evening. I'd like to call the November 16th, 2020 Henrietta Town Board Workshop meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have one special use permit for a Asian market, Indian grocery store. No town board presentations. There is one public hearing for the fiscal year 2021 preliminary budget. Do we have folks from FSI on the meeting?
Not from FSI, Mr. Supervisor, but Jess Sudol from Passero representing FSI.
Okay, perfect. Becky, do they have the ability to share their presentation, share their screen, whatever?
They should. I mean, I've been wrong before, but Jess, you should be all set.
All right, I'm going to give it a shot.
Got it.
Can everybody see that? Great.
Yep.
All right, so this is a proposed subdivision and eventual distribution center on Lot 1 that's involving the very iconic former Delphi building here on the northeast corner of Erie Station Road and West Henrietta Road. The Delphi building was recently sold and is going to be reused and repurposed, and that exists here on Lot 2. I'm pretty sure everyone's very familiar with that building. There was actually some previous concepts that looked at knocking that building down and redeveloping this entire site, which is just over 100 acres, but all of those were scrapped, and fortunately, moving forward, that building will be kept and, as I said, repurposed by a new end user who just finished purchasing the building today, as a matter of fact. So we're certainly excited that that's happening. The special use permit that we're asking for, that's currently going through the secret process, is for Lot 1 down here in the lower left corner. There's actually 2 lots existing today. The existing Delphi lot, which is around 75 acres, and another industrial with specifics zone lot where we're proposing the development. We are proposing a slight reconfiguration of those lots, but again, it's still going to be 2 lots just as it is today. Looking a little bit closer, you can see the site plan as currently contemplated. It's about a 200,000 square foot building with loading docks on one side of it and employee parking on the other, which is, obviously pretty standard. In a typical industrial zoning district, this would not require a special use permit. It would be allowed as of right, but because this area is zoned industrial with specifics, it does require review and approval by this board. The board recently declared itself the intent to be lead agency, so we are going through the secret process. I know one thing that, of course, I imagine would be of concern would be traffic generated by this project. We're in the midst of completing the traffic study to look at any potential impacts arising from the use. So this, we don't have an end user for this particular site that we can commit to as of yet. We have several similar companies that are interested. However, because of the special use requirement in the zoning code, they're hesitant to move any further. So what FSI is attempting to do is go through the environmental review and the special use permit process in order to have that initial entitlement, which will then allow any of these future end users to be able to go through the site plan approval process pretty quickly once one is selected and be able to get under construction. So that's where we currently sit. Again, just address the drainage. There is a lot of topography on this site. So there will be a decent amount of earth moving. One of the good things about the topography is we're going to be cutting the hill down, so this building will sit well below grade on Erie Station Road as to not have too much of a significant impact on those neighbors across the street. And then we're going to enhance that separation and screening by putting some berms there, because we certainly recognize that we do have single family neighbors that we have to address. That's also why the building and parking areas and infrastructure has been pushed as far east as possible to minimize potential impact to the existing single family homes and buildings on the corner of West Henrietta Road and Erie Station Road. And you can see we've populated those areas with stormwater management, green spaces, and additional berms to try to, as I said earlier, limit that impact. There will be there's two existing access points into the existing facility. We would be looking to continue to utilize both of those. So there won't be any new access. That will then allow vehicles to either travel north up West Henrietta Road, or not as many will travel east on Erie Station Road, most likely over to Middle Road, then back up to access to 390 and ultimately the thruway. But again, we are exploring all of that as part of our traffic study that's currently underway.
And Jess, that traffic study will also include the traffic from the new tenant of the former Delphi building?
Yes, sir. And it's actually kind of interesting. There was some traffic counts in this area done back when the former administration was looking at potential industrial uses in these areas as part of the generic environmental impact statement. So we do have a lot of that pre-COVID data as we refer to it. Right now, to go out and do traffic counts aren't terribly accurate because not everybody is going to work every day like they were before COVID. And also back then, when the counts were done, there was a lot of activity at this building, so we can begin to generate some of those numbers. Although it wasn't, of course, 100% full. That was a long way of saying yes. Sorry.
No problem. So I will note that the developer, they've been in a couple of times talking about various concepts for here. They've been very good about addressing, concerns brought up by myself and my team. As Jess alluded to, there was an early thought of knocking down the Delphi building and putting a very significant warehouse distribution center type thing in its place. But we expressed concerns over the impacts it would have from a traffic standpoint, as well as taking down one of which I consider to be one of Henrietta's iconic buildings. As I've stated before, the Delphi building and the former Kodak building are both just architectural gems as far as I'm concerned. So they were very good with that. When I talked to them about how they could buffer from the folks on Erie Station Road, they not only shifted the building to add more buffering, they looked at cutting it deeper into the hill. So again, they've done a good job in terms of addressing the issues even before they get their plans in, as far as potential impacts that we would see, so as to minimize. I will note, I did receive word from the Historic Site Committee that they intend to be either an interested or an involved party because of the proximity of a number of historic properties. They want to make sure that the traffic patterns are such that the majority of the traffic goes away from those historic properties and not towards them or by them. And then obviously they want to make sure that none of the drainage patterns change such that the water sheets towards the historic properties. Although from my understanding of what's going to be done, it would actually have the opposite effect. It would draw more water away from that intersection.
Correct. Yeah, and fortunately, the way that the access points are oriented with multiple routes to get up to the expressway, anybody who comes out onto Erie Station Road is most likely going to head east, and anybody who comes out on West Henrietta Road is going to head north. So that greatly limits any potential traffic impact from both the existing facility and the new one on all of these properties here, these single family residences that are on the corner. So we're fortunate to have those two existing curb cuts to help distribute our traffic.
Jess, I didn't catch how much square footage was that and how many stories?
It's single story, it's 210,000.
Okay.
And if you don't know who the tenant's going to be, how do you estimate the amount of traffic it's going to generate?
Well, we know that the use is distribution and warehousing, and we've done quite a number of those here in Monroe County. As a matter of fact, we just finished one that's 300,000 square feet out in the town of Chilai. And we've gone out and we've counted the number of vehicles of all types, both small trucks, large trucks, employees and cars on a number of these, so that we've determined really what our weighted average is. When a final user does come in for site plan review, certainly their specific use or their specific traffic, if it does deviate significantly from the baseline condition that we established as part of the environmental review, then I would think an updated traffic study would certainly be warranted. But again, we have a pretty good inventory of facilities of very similar nature that we've used to generate our numbers.
And not just traffic, if any of the
Anything.
factors in the proposed use would be, potentially greater impact than what was already mitigated and or approved, then it would be back here again. But
Yeah, for example, we're probably showing more employee parking on that side of the building than we'll ultimately need. But we do want to make sure that we're analyzing what could be considered the worst case scenario as part of the environmental review.
And then any that wasn't used, I assume, would be land banked.
That's correct.
For those who aren't familiar, land banked, it basically means they reserve the space for the parking, but they leave it green until such a time as it's needed.
So Jess, who's your tenant in Chilai, if you can tell us?
Oh, it's unrelated, but they're called C&M Forwarding. It's a cross-dock facility. They're actually a local company that started in downtown Rochester years ago. Then they opened up a facility on Jetview Drive near the airport. And then last year, we completed their new facility on Union Street, 259 in Chilai.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a really nice facility if everyone's ever out on 259 in Chilai. Can't miss it.
Chilai, ew. That's for you, Mr. Dunning. Into our minutes.
As a resident of Chilai, I have no comment.
There's, shall we say, some professional taunting between supervisors generally. So, although I have to thank Mr. Dunning for basically pushing back on the Rochester area reliability project, which then allowed it to come to Henrietta, and that's a large reason why we saw 3.9% growth in the town in terms of property base. So he did some nice things for us, even if it was incidental.
No comment.
I just have some concerns with the traffic over on Lehigh, because that seems like near the expressway there, the on-ramps, it's where we have some issues, during rush hours. So that's one.
There's no on-ramps there. That's Erie Station.
I'm sorry, excuse
Erie
me.
Station.
Excuse me. Yep.
Yeah.
You're going over, okay.
Well, you're going to come to that four-way stop at the top of that hill and then make
Right.
a turn.
So,
Middle
right,
road.
although I suspect to get on, they're gonna go around West Henrietta Road and turn right, because then everything is right turn onto the expressway. Coming off, there is a potential, one of the things we might want to take a look at is if there is going to be a lot of truck traffic, I'm not sure that Middle Road is the correct route for it. If there is going to be a bunch down Middle Road, then it's possible that the road, and the county will weigh on it. It's a county road. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if the county basically wanted to see some improvements done to the turning lanes on that road to handle truck traffic, if that's the case.
And that's what I was referring when we went out on West Henrietta
Gotcha.
Road onto.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they could in fact carry that right turn lane all the way, pretty much up most of the way over to Middle Road, so you never even actually have to get on Lehigh Station Road. In other words, you take this is for the one off of the thruway, then I turn right, and instead of having to merge and then immediately turn right, it could carry right into the right turn lane to Middle Road. So it wouldn't take much to make that improvement. So, but again, that's going to be dictated by the county and the state, since those are county and state roads.
And they just have a stop sign now on West Henrietta Road. Do you foresee that you're going to have to do an actual traffic light there?
At our entrance?
Yes.
I'm sorry, you. Yes, Jesse.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, the traffic study will ultimately determine the answer to that question, but just based on what I know of, what to expect with traffic volumes, I think that's highly unlikely that it would generate the need for a signal light.
And again, that decision will be a state decision.
They will decide.
Do you have any idea when that facility was fully occupied, how many people were working there?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can look into it.
'Cause I know they have a lot of parking. It seems to have a lot of parking.
They do.
Yes.
Right.
They do.
When I went through there, and I was just curious if it was always full.
As far as the parking always being full.
And it looks like, just really rough numbers, almost 800 spaces. That's counting.
Yeah, no,
Right.
it was, when it was at its full capacity, I had a friend that worked there and the parking lot was, no.
Well, it's
Never.
like Delco days, even that far. One of the things, going back to your question about the stop sign, because there is a traffic light at Erie Station and at Thruway Park, I think that will open up plenty of gaps for people to be able to get in and out of that entrance. I don't see that they would. It's possible, but when you look at it, in between those two traffic lights, there's only one other road that feeds out into that section where people could really get onto the road section. So I think those two lights would provide enough gapping for the people to get out of that. But obviously, like I said, that's ultimately a state decision.
Just depend if everybody gets off work at the same time or not.
Right. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you very much, Jess.
All right, thank you. Talk to
Thank you.
Soon. So we have considered declaring intent to be lead agency, Commercial Street Partners, north corners of Lehigh Station Road and East River Road. So if you'll recall, back before the three of us took office, there was an approval for kind of a 3-section project, apartment project. The north part was going to be market rate apartments. If I remember correctly, the south portion was split in two. One part was going to be student or senior housing. One was going to be subsidized housing. That was Morgan, Spalletta, and Krista, I believe, were the three major people involved, although different combinations thereof for each of the different portions. Those never happened. So they've been revisited. The proposal that we're talking about lead agency is with respect to the whole development. They are not going to try to keep the old application alive. They are going to instead build to the multi-use employment. I forgot what exactly it's called, development overlay, something like that. So the idea is the northeast corner, which is going to be essentially phase 1. That's going to be apartments, and they are going to be open apartments. Doesn't mean students can't live there, but they're not going to be tailored to students. They're going to be more tailored to exactly what that overlay district was supposed to be, where it's a mix of apartments in and around office buildings. So, if people want to live close to work, that they can. The southern portion, so what used to be two different portions south of Lehigh Station Road and east of East River, that's going to be one area. That's going to be the commercial or industrial portion. That will be potentially developed later. It's possible if some major tenant comes in, it could happen quickly. As some of you remember and others may just be learning, when we did the multi-use, if you broke it up, the land uses by acreage, there was no requirement to immediately or in any time frame build out the other portions. You just couldn't build them out as anything else except as what meets the plans. So they thought there was a thought, oh, do we want to have stuff development and have it waiting? As long as it stayed green, we're fine with it staying green, right? Obviously if they start to develop it, if they do grading, they have to get it back to green, or they have to start building on it. They can't essentially turn it into a big pile of mud and then leave it for a long time, even SWIP stuff aside. That's the current plan. They will be in same thing. It won't be 30 days by the December meeting, but same thing. We're going to have them come and do a presentation at the December workshop. So again, you guys have something to look at and think about before the January meeting, which is when the potential approval occurs. One of the things that they are doing, we had talked about that, as we're doing this East River Road sidewalk, as you get down to about Fairwood Drive, which is the road that comes out of the old RIT's Racket Club Apartments. Now it's called The Hill. As you go south from there, there's a creek that would be difficult, and wetlands that would be difficult to cross from a sidewalk. So the plan, not to mention as you go up the hill, the grade is such that there was no good place for a sidewalk right along the road. So the plan was to deviate the road away from the roadside at that part. And so as part of the multi-use overlay district, you have to include public area. So it can be, parkland, it can be a bunch of different things. They're going to include, as part of that, they're going to bring that sidewalk surrounded essentially by a green belt up through this complex, and if and when they develop the southern portion, they'll continue it further south. I put them in touch with Rich Lefroy and his partners who are working on the Wiregrass office development, with the idea that can they work to align the roads, as well as also putting them in touch with the Kodak Riverwood Tech Campus. Just lost his name. What, say again? Rinaldi. Yeah, Fred Rinaldi. So that the three of them can work together with the idea that you take the entrance off of Lehigh Station is essentially across from Wiregrass, and it comes out onto East River Road across from the southern Riverwood entrance, because there's a light there already. And that way it becomes a four-way intersection, and that's the route through this southern industrial commercial portion. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of the overall preliminary site plan, I guess you would call it, from a multi-use standpoint. And again, they'll give us more of that at the next workshop meeting. Any questions? Chris, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, Steve, I think you handled it very well. I don't have anything further comments.
There's no idea when they would develop the commercial aspect of this piece?
That would happen, basically as they get the as they get tenants. So, you know, I know there was at one point, Fred Rinaldi was even looking at that particular portion and then decided to develop some other stuff. You know, Rich Lefroy is still developing Wiregrass itself. You know, so don't know. Some of that obviously will be economy driven. Right now, we're seeing amazing number of business starts, but there's still a lot that's, I think without the pandemic, you'd be seeing even more.
So you said that this is an updated application that from what had been approved before?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with the seeker, is that going to take into consideration both the apartment and the industrial space, or just the apartment at this time?
So it will typically have a typical use for the industrial, but obviously without having any idea what's going in there, they can only take a stab at it. So when they do bring those in, they would update that. But, you know, we don't want it to just be the one and ignore the fact that, hey, at some point down the road, there may be an industrial use down there. So, you know, and some of the, so it from a traffic study, it should include both, but in terms of the primary, the other impacts, the other, as well as the traffic, in other words, the seeker is going to focus on the apartment portion.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do that, it's with the understanding that at some point, the bottom portion is going to be developed, and obviously it'll need its own seeker, but they're not going to try to get full approval for that area. Again, they'll try to get something that's typical and then come back with more specifics.
Okay.
That's my understanding of what they're doing.
And the apartments was there 300? How many was it going to be? 300?
I don't remember what the number of units were. In order to,
350?
was that what it was?
Yeah, 350.
350?
One of the things that they were looking to do is to increase the open space in this area. They were looking to go a little more vertical. So I don't know where they were in terms of height restrictions. One of the things on this, there's some terrain here because it's essentially on the side of a hill. So, you know, my understanding is like what we heard from the Freemasons, you know, at the Middle Road site, because of that slope down, the idea is, you know, the front building might be 2-story, the middle building might be 3-story, and the back building might be 4-story, something like that. So that from a roadside, you know, it doesn't have a whole lot of impact in terms of the height. Obviously, if any of those come over height, they'll have to come in for a special use permit to get the approval on the height.
And did they say if all those apartments are going to be market value, market?
To my understanding, the plan was to have them all market, and I will point out, the preliminary plan that I did see had a few apartment buildings as well as some, we'll call them townhouses, and I mean that townhouse apartments, they weren't ones, it was all rentals is my understanding, but you know, more the townhouse style apartment where each unit has a separate entrance and is standalone with a firewall in between. Is that correct, Chris? Do you remember that?
Yeah, so typically what they like to do, just as you said, Steve, they'll put the bigger unit in the middle, and then they'll surround it with the smaller units, so it helps with the massing. And I believe the seeker also is for both the apartments and for the industrial to the south.
Yeah, like
to
my knowledge, it's just for typical industrial, correct?
That's right, typical industrial. There's nothing like that we know, like a call center or anything like that. But it's just, you know, right now it's just generic. They'll have to come in for site plans at some point if this, you know, goes on further.
Right, and again, you know, the way that works is if the use that's coming in it has the same impact or less, then they don't need to do any update. If it's a greater impact, then they would need to update the seeker.
Right. For example, if the use is one of them is a call center, which wasn't in the initial seeker, or a traffic study, then they would have to come in with an updated traffic study because it's a higher use or a denser use.
Yeah, your traffic study will basically set a threshold of traffic generation trips. And if their proposed use exceeds that, then you could update your seeker to reflect that more intense use. Either that or you could segment it.
They are doing, to my knowledge, they are doing it in phases. So I suspect they won't want to pay their full traffic seeker mitigation fees for the industrial section, knowing that who knows when the industrial will come in.
Right.
If I remember correctly, the fees had to be paid before any building permits could be issued.
But this is a multi-use.
Correct.
So they're definitely doing industrial. They're just not exactly sure what it's going to be like.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they probably wouldn't want to.
They're apportioning it by acreage. Remember, we could either do it by acreage or square footage.
Yeah. Yeah. So I believe the seeker mitigation program allows them to phase their payments based on phases.
That was my recollection as well.
I can just say that I like the kind of the original plan where they were going to have different, market value and the senior and affordable housing.
So unfortunately, right now, they can't do the affordable because
The bus.
it's not on the bus loop. And in order to get the supplements from the states to handle this affordable, or it's more than just affordable, it's the subsidized. In order to do that, they have to be on a transit. So I don't know if the management has changed. And if the management has changed, I don't know if they have changed their minds, but until such a time as that could be on the bus route. Now, it doesn't have to be on a direct bus route. It could be on the, I forgot what on-demand bus service. That would qualify, but that's what killed that, because that one was going ahead. The Heritage Gables, I think is what they were going to call it. And they had the New York State housing grant all lined up, but it got killed because the previous county administration was unwilling to bring the bus service out there.
How about for the senior housing? Do you know if they require?
Senior does not. It's just, but there is senior housing proposed for, we haven't gotten the application and seeker for it, but there's been initial discussion about senior housing at Marketplace Mall in the portion that was the old movie cinema. It's a southwest corner, west of, used to be Field and Stream. When they came in, I asked them, would they make some of the units affordable? One of the things, if we need them to put more of those in, if you'll remember, that's part of what's in the incentive zoning, is that if they're willing to put in the affordable units, we could give them a density bonus specifically for that purpose. One of the things we have to be careful on when we do that, it has to be tied to affordable, because otherwise they take the density bonus. One of the things that usually happens is developers want to build the higher end stuff because they get more money for it.
Right.
And so the idea of the incentive is, I'll give you some extra units, so you can make the same amount of money. You're going to make less per unit, but I'm going to have more units. Well, you don't want to give them that bonus and then have them turn around and make them all the high-end ones and make even more money. That's not the purpose of the incentive. The incentive is, there's a lot of residents. So to ask one of the earlier questions about what questions do I get a lot, that's one of them.
Yep.
Where can we get some affordable senior housing? Because I want to, my kids have moved out. I want to sell my house, but I want to stay in Henrietta, but there just isn't enough affordable senior housing. So we're working on that.
That's exactly why I ask.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else? Number 5, the intermunicipal agreement with Monroe County to receive CARES funding. Mike, you wanted?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I mean, I see that we applied for it, or we're gonna apply for it, and,
We did apply for it.
okay, can we apply again for it if we incur more costs?
I assume they would have a second round of it. Linda, do you know that answer?
Hey, Mike. So this round was for anything that was incurred through November 5th was the deadline to submit that. And that's what the funding they have right now. And what we were told is that once they get all the funding from all the different towns, villages, et cetera, they'll ensure that they have enough money to pay it all out. He assured me that we would get this paid out, but as we know right now, that deadline is cut off. We are tracking all future spending for potential FEMA submission.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? The IMA is just basically a requirement that we have to sign in order to be able to get the funding. Because the money actually goes to the county. So if you remember, for the agricultural lease, we went out, asked for people to respond. The current farmer is the only one who responded. So this time we'll sign a multi-year deal so we don't have to do this.
Okay, good.
Now, again, the way those multi-years works is they can be renewed. It's not automatic, but we can renew them up to 2 times. Number 7, the Associations of Town is having a business meeting. Becky, did you want to talk about that at all, or?
Well, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to talk about, but yeah, they're having their regular business meeting. They're just doing it virtually this year rather than doing it in New York City, which may make it easier for you all to attend. If you guys should decide you want to vote on anything, we would need to assign a delegate, an alternate delegate. So this is what this resolution is about, if you guys should want to do that.
And she right now has me as the delegate and someone else as the alternate. If somebody wants to be the delegate and someone else the alternate, I'm fine with that as well. You know, I know one of the things that's up for discussion by AO, the Association of Towns, they are looking at that, you know, the impacts on the municipalities from the pandemic and from the executive orders. And essentially, you know, working with us for that. What was the other thing that?
Some changes to the solar and
Right.
renewable energy laws.
So one of the things in the, you know, there were some changes to the solar laws with respect to the big, the large solar factories that, you know, essentially are, start to approach power plant production capability.
25 megawatts plus.
25 megawatts or greater. You know, the issue that you have with those is that they are, with the change in the laws, it used to be they were supposed to pay attention to local ordinances and rules where they weren't burdensome. That language has just gone away. They don't have to pay attention to them at all.
Under the new proposal.
Under the new proposal.
That's not adopted yet.
Right.
The good thing about AOT is they lobby in favor of towns. So they're trying to make it more favorable to the towns.
Mhm.
So again, the idea is to keep that protection in there that, you know, if we have, you know, so again, they have to be reasonable. So if you say something like, I want 100-foot setback from, you know, any major road, that they would have to abide by that type of thing. That I couldn't consume more than so many acres of prime farmland, that kind of thing. Or maybe it's by percentage in the town or whatever. So that's some of what they're looking at. So is anybody interested in participating in the?
What was the date?
Well, usually those are like all day or all week. So how?
It's going to be in February.
In February?
Yeah, I don't have the exact dates, but it's going to be virtual this year. So.
Do you have that, Becky, as to any dates?
They said President's Week, so I can pull up my calendar and see.
The says, oh, well, you have to have it by February 5th.
By February 5th, yeah.
Okay,
So I'm just trying to find President's Day and failing. Oh, there we go. I gotta just go turn on my holidays. Oh, so President's Day is February 15th. So sounds like it'd be that week.
And is that like all week, all day?
I think it might be 2 days.
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't received the schedule yet for that.
so I guess one of the questions is, when do we have to have this decided by?
February 5th.
We don't have to decide this now.
Right. They just want to make sure you have somebody that can act or vote on the town's behalf.
Right,
That's all.
Yeah, I'd be interested in watching it and going to it
right.
virtually.
Becky, I don't see a reason to have that as a voting item for this week.
Hey, you want to push it off till like January?
To December or January, yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Gives people some time to think about it. I don't want to wait till February to make a decision, but the thing is December, I'd say the first, so the meeting in December or the first meeting in January, either of those would be fine. Mike, you had questions about number 8 for the sanitary sewer pipe?
Yeah, it's that Kenyon pipe inspection. Have they done work for us before?
This is Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning, and yes, Mike, they've done this probably for 2 or 3 years for us.
Okay.
They replaced Scanex. It's actually part of the county contract. So Monroe County has a contract that we can piggyback off of. So we've used them, like I said, probably for like 2 or 3 years for these type of projects.
Okay, thank you. I thought I recognized the name, but I wasn't positive. Thank you.
And there's a portion of this that is covered, is it by the Community Development Block Grant?
That's correct, Steve. There's $45,300, which we'd like to get done by the end of the year, which they can certainly do. Which is about half the projected cost.
Great.
And I'll point out that sewer has its own budget that is not COVID affected. So this doesn't have an effect on our budgetary situation with regards to the general budget. We just have a couple of the dedications, roadways and storm sewers. Number 10, the approving conveyance of open space, Howlett Acres. So this is related, just like we had just gone through with the Forest View development. When they put that plan together, the town board approved the future conveyance of open space. It's up to us now to make sure it meets that, and if so, then we formally accept the conveyance.
Okay.
Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. We are initially, I think Becky has the resolution on there. We approved the concept of it. Now it's physically taken dedication of that land.
How many acres is it, or how much land is it?
8.9 acres. And there'll be more in section 2 and 3 when we get to those sections, but we're just taking the land in section 1 right now, Rob.
Okay. Will the other section go up Martin Road?
No,
No.
this is
No,
all.
not Martin Road.
Yeah.
This is,
Go ahead,
I know where
Chris.
it is.
These are
I
more-
know where this is. But tell me where it is. I think I know where it is.
yeah, no, this is, let's see, it's south of Erie Station and east of East River Road.
And west of the railroad tracks.
It's all, yeah, it's kind of opposite, Sweet
Next to
Pea.
the development there. Okay.
Yeah,
Right,
And so-
yeah, you're thinking of maybe Queens Park.
Okay.
right. So this one is all, like I said, this is all north of where the railroad tracks cross East River. The 3 phases if you basically take that triangle and break it into roughly thirds, this, section 1 is the southernmost section. That's the part that's done and ready to go.
That's where
Sec-
they just put all those pine trees, all those trees in over there.
That's
I
right.
believe there were a
Yeah,
bunch of
it's,
new trees put in.
Yeah, I think Bruce Howlett planted some as part of the approved plans that he was supposed to, and it's a Ryan development, so Ryan Homes is, Bruce is selling the lots to Ryan, and then Ryan's building the home.
Right, so section
yeah,
1 is the
section 1 is
southernmost
built out.
portion. It also includes the new pump station.
Right.
Section 2 is in the middle. That's the one where the homes are being built today. To my knowledge, they're getting pretty close to sold out if they haven't gotten there already. And then 3 is at the intersection. And they're basically just getting that started.
Yeah, as far as home building, but the binder and the gutters are in, so they're probably starting foundations soon if they haven't already.
Okay.
So there will be open space that's dedicated with each of the sections that are completed?
Yeah, the majority though is with section 1. That has the highest percentage, and the other ones are smaller as you go further north.
They're more like trails that connect down to the larger open space at the southern end. And there's
Correct.
a pond at the southern end too, with green space around it.
And this, I saw it's supposed to go to the Henrietta Conservation Land Bank, so it's dedicated open space, not intended for park space or anything along those lines at this time.
Is that correct, Chris?
I think so. I mean, it was kind of a special district that we set up for any type of open space. But I think we have the option if we wanted to put a park in there. I mean, it's town land. I just think we have, we can do whatever we want with it. Right now, we've been using them mostly as passive parks or passive areas, with trails and things like that. But, certainly in the future, if we wanted to put a pavilion or a gazebo, certainly we could do that.
Or even just
But it's not a formal park. It's not a formal park by any means, though.
We could, in theory,
Does that make sense?
whether we do put a pavilion there, because I don't know that there's good parking for something like that. But for instance, what I'll call the neighborhood playground type scenario, something like that could certainly go in there. Any other questions?
No.
So as you remember, we put out the bid for it wasn't a formal bid process, but requested responses for the surveying. The top 2 were within a couple $100 of each other. And Magdev was the winning response.
I did have a question after when the last time something was built out there, wasn't there a survey done?
For which?
Well, in that area.
Are you talking Highland?
I'm sorry, yeah, for the
Yeah, but this
sidewalk project.
is specifically to figure out the grade for the sidewalk. So essentially we would have the topo for where the sidewalk would go. But some of what we're looking to do also is move the current guardrail out so that the sidewalk goes against the curb. And therefore the guardrail, especially as you get up near the ponds, that we'll probably add a second level on the guardrail. So it's both a guardrail and a fence, like you see on bridges. So that somebody walking or riding their bike on the trail doesn't take a header down into the ponds.
Yeah, and if I may add as well, we didn't have any recent survey from any of the, from the county or anything, within, 4 or 5 years. So this will give us a fresh perspective of both the east and the west side. Because if we have money left over, the sidewalk we're going to put on the west side of Highland Drive. But if it looks like we have some additional funds, instead of going out for another survey, you know, we may want to have pockets where we want to put sidewalk on the east side as well. You know, maybe not the whole length, but maybe from Jefferson Road down through Wegmans. So we extended our limits a little bit just because we wanted just to go out and get the survey one time and not have to do it again. And I would say that, and the funding for this is coming out of the Jefferson Road Transportation Development District. So again, the funds are already available, not only for the survey work, but also for the construction as well.
Right, I was gonna point that out, and those funds can only be used within that district. And only for transportation-related expenses within that district. So this is multimodal, that works. But since most of the roads in that area are state and county, it makes sense. And both the state and county agreed with this. In fact, the state, if you saw, brought their sidewalk around from redoing the sidewalks on Jefferson Road or on either side of Highland. They're bringing it around so that it'll connect to the sidewalk we put in.
That's great.
Any other questions? We have a couple out-of-district sewer user agreements. These are individual properties that are being added to sewer use. 2021 calendar. Becky, I don't know if you've got the calendar, would be able to share it, or if we just want to talk to the specific dates. I realize this was both you and I know Jenny was playing a big part in this, but this year we only had one meeting in November and December because of where the holidays lined up. Next year we have the potential to have two meetings in both of those. The other thing is this year, our organizational meeting is the end of December. You can do that on even years because it's the same town board that goes over. If it's a new town board, you have to have, you can do the workshop in December, but the town board meeting itself has to be in January under the auspices of the new board. And so, one of the things we were looking at as you get into the December, if you could zoom in on the December portion, that would be great. So we've got a draft up here, and, we're just looking at what we do in terms of the meetings. And the idea was we could have two in November. Now, the only issue, if I remember correctly, the second town board meeting would be the day before Thanksgiving, correct? Becky?
In the share screen, I had a hard time finding where the mute button was.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up the November calendar here. Let's see here. So if we did November 8th, yeah, it'd be the second one would fall on the week of Thanksgiving, which isn't super ideal.
Right. Now, it's funny, of course, this year with the pandemic, not as many people are traveling.
Can't
so
go
it's not
anywhere
a big
anyway.
deal, but, the pandemic will be in the rearview mirror by next Thanksgiving. Well, that's why I was knocking on the gavel block. So, one of the things we could do, as we've done before, is have the meeting on the Monday, have the workshop the Friday before. I'm not sure it's super necessary to have the, if we're going to have two in December, do we need the two in November? That's up to you guys. I just wanted to get you guys thinking about it. We don't have to make the decision today, but I wanted us to start thinking about it in that regards. Right. My thought on the workshop, or excuse me, on the organizational meeting, is we would have the day scheduled for the very end of December. If new people are elected to the board, that date would become the workshop.
There you go.
And then we would have the organizational meeting essentially, I guess it would be the 3rd, because if I remember correctly, the 2nd is a Sunday. If everybody is reelected, then we can have the meeting on that. If it's one and the same, you know, again, the stuff that's in organizational meetings is the stuff that's in there every year. So it's up to you whether we need both a organizational workshop and an organizational meeting. You know, obviously if there's new board members on, that becomes more crucial.
Right.
To get them up to speed on what happens at an organizational meeting. But
These dates follow the pattern we've had though, right? I always mix it up, 1st and 3rd.
2nd and 4th Wednesday?
Oh, yeah. One of those, yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just put it on my calendar and show
Right.
up.
One other change in the calendar I'll note, and this was more decided by the planning board, but the planning board is going to be going to one meeting a month for a couple reasons. During the pandemic, every meeting, it's a lot of work setting up a meeting to have, especially the hybrid meetings. And also with the pandemic, the traffic is down a little bit. So they're going to start that way. They'll keep going and see if it creates hardships for the developers. If so, they might go back to you know, worst case scenario, if they get, you know, 8 applications in one meeting, that would result in a massively long meeting.
Right.
They could just call for a second meeting that month. But we're going to just try going to one meeting a month to see how that goes.
That's a good idea.
Especially during the, like I said, during the wave 2 of the pandemic. Any other questions, comments?
No, I have a question on number 11 that I forgot to ask. Are they going to do any bike markings or on the street?
That's a county question, and state up at the intersection. I don't know what they're going to do from a bike lane.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say, ours is just gonna be a 5 or 7 foot wide concrete sidewalk, you know, along the curb line typically. You know, certainly bikes can ride on them, but they always prefer to ride on the shoulder or the edge of pavement.
Right.
But we wouldn't be marking the sidewalk at all, but certainly we could work with the county, it made it a separate project to do some type of bike lanes.
Okay.
One of the things we did talk about is when we get to the main bus shelter, that the sidewalk would both go in front of and behind the bus shelter. That way, if people were riding a bike, they could go behind the shelter and not plow people over waiting for the bus. But otherwise, yeah, it was going to be, one or the other, but not specifically marked out.
Well, it'd be great if they did go ahead and do something for the complete streets and get those in there for those that ride bikes. Thanks.
Young explosives. So if we commit now to young explosives, they're giving us a discount. So we essentially get the $20,000 show for $17,000.
I see.
I think we have to both commit. And do we have to prepay?
No, it says, did not say prepayment on this.
So I don't know if Pam or Linda, if you know that answer.
No, we don't have to prepay. We always we'll pay on the regular schedule. We just have to sign the contract. That's what they're looking for.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sounds great. Hopefully we'll have July fireworks.
Right.
That would be great.
Any other questions on that?
No.
So it doesn't need to go out to bid?
No, this is one that the last time we went out to bid, we did multi-year.
Okay.
So again, we actually already have the thing in place and it was for 20K, but what we're you know, they basically offer because of COVID, I'm sure, and you know, how much they were hurting this past year,
Right.
that if they can get a commitment now, it helps them financially, I guess. So,
Mike, that's where I was gonna go. What happens if there is, you know, we're still.
with all the stuff, just as, I mean, we had committed to the last
Right,
one.
we did.
Right.
We had signed the contract.
We did
They
it all.
understand that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, now if there isn't a, you know, executive orders and health emergencies, then we have to live.
We're obligated. Yeah.
But obviously, if we can't hold the event,
Right.
and they were actually very pleased that we did do what we did
The
with
reverse.
the reverse parade,
Mhm.
as were all the band members. You know, for a lot of those bands, we were their only gig the entire year.
Mhm.
So, so again, Young was very happy with us that we got them some revenue, even if
Right.
it wasn't full revenue.
Steve, this is
And
Linda.
I suspect, you know, God forbid the pandemic is still going by next July, we would do something similar to what we did this year with the reverse
Worked out so
parade.
well this year.
Hey, Steve, this is Linda. So
Yep.
the current contract is through December 31st of 2022. So it exists and it's out there, and that was based on the quotes and the bids we put out. And to your point, it was for $3,000 a year. So this amendment is nothing more than changing the amount.
Okay.
Yeah, it's reducing it by
Correct.
several thousand.
Right.
Yeah, it was questionable whether we even had to, since it was sort of a not to exceed, but because it's an agreement, the town has to authorize me to sign it. It's one of those better safe than sorry.
Safe. Yep.
We didn't think anybody would argue with saving $3,000, but.
No, we're not.
The telecommunications connectivity service agreement. So this is something similar. Andrew basically talked with them and found a better contract or service plan. We currently already have a service plan with Verizon. Essentially, we can lower our rates for the town phones.
Nice.
Did you want to add anything to that, Andrew?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. No, it's the contract is pretty much the same as the previous one, with just being a little more economical. We do get more data for our smartphones, and generally most of our devices has dropped a few dollars, so we are saving a little. But yeah, it's much the same.
Great,
Fantastic.
thanks. Any other questions? For 17, we talked about that one previously. This is the authorization to replace the tractor. You know, again, Chuck was able to find essentially a replacement tractor for the cost that we got back from the insurance.
Sure, yeah.
For those who are like me and see the word undertaking and don't know what it means, it's a form of insurance that we specifically are required by state law to have for tax collection. And then basically 19 will be the adopting the fiscal year preliminary budget. So it's the one that you guys amended at the last meeting. We'll basically do the public hearing at the beginning. And then, you know, at that point, we can, just like last time, if we need to make any changes to it, we can pass resolutions or, you know, modify that particular resolution to include those changes. And then it becomes the final budget, an adopted budget.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add on that, Linda?
No, that's correct.
We have a few budget transfers and adjustments. Some personnel items. Mike, I guess you're up for bills payable?
I don't think, sure.
Thanks for saving me.
No problem. That's what the schedule said.
Yeah.
If it's wrong,
I believe it may be wrong.
You think so?
okay.
I don't know. I just
Yeah,
did
I
it
think
last
may.
month.
I think it's Millie.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was me, but
Okay.
It's Millie.
I'll hand it over to Mike.
I think it's Millie.
I'm okay with that.
Just to be forewarned, it has.
Had me down again. I knew it wasn't me.
What was that?
To be forewarned, it has all the payments for all the election officials in it, so that stack in itself is about 200.
Whoa, the
Okay.
big bill.
Now I know
It's,
it's
now
not.
it's yours, not.
Now I know it's not. I'm sure it was Millie.
All I've got to say is, it doesn't really provide any kind of audit capability if the town supervisor reviews his own staff. So
Right.
at that point, it becomes you guys arguing.
No, we,
For the 23, the open board positions, basically, we've been doing interviews. In fact, we're going to have an executive session to bring forth the recommendations from the group that interviewed the candidates for planning board. Mary Beth is setting up the interviews for zoning board next. For both the youth advisory and the the youth board or youth bureau or whatever it's called these days, and the rec advisory board, we still have some open positions. In other words, we have more open positions than we do have applicants.
Okay.
So one of the things, if you know somebody who might serve well on those boards, please encourage them to contact us. Where were we on conservation, Becky? Do you remember?
Conservation Board, 3 people have requested reappointment. We need 3 people.
So that's another one that we need some additional applicants. One of the things.
Oh, no, so we had 3 people who are interested and for 3 spots.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Okay,
yeah, so
we don't
we're
don't
okay.
need extra.
We're okay on the other boards. We have enough people. It's just the Youth Board and Parks and Rec Advisory Board that needs some more interest, needs some bodies.
Sounds
How
good.
many positions are we looking to fill on the rec advisory?
We need 8.
Okay.
We have 5 people who have requested reappointment, if we're talking about the adults.
Right.
This is youth. Board?
And for Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we need 4. And we have 3 people who have expressed interest, so we just need another person for that board.
Well,
Should
again,
they
I'd
send
also
in-
prefer if we had a few extras in case we find somebody who
Right.
is
Right.
borderline.
Should they submit their resumes in a letter of interest?
They absolutely should, yes.
To town clerk,
Town clerk at henrietta.org would be perfect.
Okay, got it.
do we want to, what do we want to set for a deadline?
if we had open spots even after the first of the year, we could.
We can fill in later, yep. But
Okay.
my point is for consideration for this batch.
The December, maybe?
It's even.
Oh, no, that's a little late because they
Yeah.
have to be approved by December.
Right. Do you want to do it by the,
Yeah, the next meeting is December 9th. So if we were planning on doing board appointments, then I know some of the boards, it's helpful to do so. Conservation Board, they meet that first, right at the beginning of January. So it's good to give them time to
Right.
get their oaths.
so the plan, the order, Becky, is, like I said, we will be finishing planning board tonight. Zoning board's next, then conservation board. So those ones will be all ready to approve at the December meeting. In fact, we even talked about whether we would put the planning board on tonight. I said, well, since we got other boards to do anyways, we'll put them all on. We can notify people,
Right.
of their pending appointment, but the official resolution would be on the 9th. And so the idea would be to do those 3 boards at least by the 9th, and then depending on where we are with the other 2, we'll either do them then or, again, make the decision and then do the formal adoption at the organizational meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
So why don't we say by noon on the Monday following Thanksgiving? That way we should be all done with the other 2 boards by then and ready to pick up and do the interviews for those boards. Does that work?
That works. Yeah. Yeah. For us anyway. Yeah. The sooner the better, obviously. And we can put something on the website and our Facebook page to encourage people again to apply.
Great.
So that would be 2 weeks from today, correct?
That looks like Monday, November 30th.
Yep.
2 weeks from today. Yes.
And that essentially gives us a week to hopefully do interviews before the board meeting. And, we might even be able to have them done, all of them ready to go for the board meeting. On the historic site committee, we actually were all set on that one because we had somebody who was previously on and is returning from active duty.
He came back? Okay, that's great.
He is coming back.
Okay.
Again, we have a alternate who's filling in between, but. Okay. So November 30th at noon. Old business. There was a couple people who asked, one of them had to do with the tree resolution. The Birchcraft?
Yeah.
Birchcrest is scheduled to take the tree down this week.
Oh,
Great.
nice.
Didn't fall
Fantastic.
down yesterday.
No, unfortunately, it didn't fall down. Of course, with our luck, it would have fallen in the wrong direction.
Wrong direction, right.
But yeah, so that's the plan. I spoke with Tim Oakes today. We didn't suffer much in the way of tree fall. We had one smaller tree that didn't have a whole lot of branches that did come down, but that's about it. Also under old business, Tim and Scott did go over and look at the buildings potentially from the school district. The house will need a new roof. Said it's not that expensive. It's not a very big roof. Probably should be a tear off. The foundation looks good. The most of the stuff inside looks good. They're having it tested for lead paint. They don't think it is, but they basically are doing the test anyway. The windows all look good. We already know they weren't able to test it because the power wasn't on, but we've already knew
The furnace?
going in that we're going to need a new furnace, which again isn't a huge expense. And again, Michelle LaBelle had some folks who might be willing. They'll definitely. I shouldn't say definitely. Last I knew, they would donate their service. They are an HVAC
That's great.
contractor, and he's even going to see if he can find us a unit that can be
great.
donated.
Yeah, that's good. Great.
And Tim's going to type these up for me so I can distribute them. But he had taken out a bunch of notes. For the church, the roof will eventually have to be replaced 5, 7, 10 years out, somewhere thereabouts is what they estimate. That one is a much bigger roof, so that one would be a bigger expense.
Right.
Again, the windows look good. Again, there was no noticeable leak. There is water stain in the basement of the church. It looks like it's coming in from under the window well. So again, my suspicion is it's only when those rain so hard that those fill up past a particular level. We would certainly take a look at it and fix that, but that's not an issue. He said from looking at it, they couldn't get at under the carpet, but they could see it from underneath, and it looks like it's hardwood.
Wow.
So they're hoping that they'll be able to just pull up the carpeting and refinish the floor.
There was the one broken stained glass window. Are they just gonna like put something over it temporarily?
Yeah, we would do something along those, right. And or see if we can find there are people who repair those. You know, obviously there are some areas where it needs paint, he said, but it's not horrid. But that, you know, pretty much all of the repairs are within the capabilities of our buildings and grounds folks. So
That's great.
the big thing with the church will be the handicap accessibility. One of the things we talked about was that entrance that we couldn't easily get to because of all the chairs.
Right.
That comes in at ground level. We would have to essentially build a ramp off of that. And my thought is we go towards the back of the building, and that's where we could put the handicap parking spaces. So I'm working with Chris and his team to put together a parking map. I want to have handicap spaces back there, so I suspect we're probably going to expand the parcel a little bit, probably another essentially parking space, so that there's enough room for vehicles to pull in and park into the handicap area, which would add probably another 6 to 8 parking spaces total. So we'll get that updated count, and then we'll go from there.
Is there any potential for any DASNY grants for that property? For making it handicap accessible or anything like that?
I suspect there would be. You know, now that's assuming, you know, I don't know where the New York State budget's going to
Well,
be.
yeah, that's a whole nother issue.
You know, one of the things in that regards is, you know, it does have a chair lift in the front. It's not the best in terms of handicap accessibility right now, but it's not completely without it. You know, so again, we could use it to some extent because of the, if you will, old building exclusion. We could potentially use it to some extent with the understanding that we'd have to improve it. Again, if you remember, this building wasn't ADA compliant.
Sure wasn't.
So,
Yeah.
but we would certainly want to work on that. You know, one of the things we took a look at, the bathrooms do need some improvements. That's going to be probably the most expensive portion, although again, that's within the capabilities of our folks.
Okay.
Would the thought be there's one upstairs and 2 downstairs? Would it, you know, would it be maybe make the one upstairs just
Full HDA? Yeah, so I mean, if we can fit, because there was like what was it? Like a confessional, if I remember correctly. There was something else where the bathroom is, the current bathroom upstairs.
Yes, there was, it was the confession,
Right, it was
because I
the-
asked what it was.
Right. So the idea is, depending on the space, if we knock all that out and just split that space in 2, we might be able to put 2 fully ADA compliant bathrooms in there. To be determined. The key being you want to put them where the plumbing already is.
Right.
So, but the good news is they looked at it from underneath, they could get at all the plumbing, so.
And I think if I remember correctly, the restrooms in the basement were almost underneath
Right.
the one upstairs. So-
Right.
So it would be, yes.
Yeah, the issue with that is, you know, again, to the basement, there is no good way to do handicap accessibility down in the basement, so. But, you know, that could be the non-HDA bathrooms, and the HDA bathrooms could be on the first floor. In fact, I would like to take a look at if it's even possible to take of those 2 bathrooms of that space where the current bathroom is, could we build up a false floor? Is the ceiling high enough that we could make that off of the main, to use church terms, off of the apse? So off of the main area where the, that way, because right now where they are, my recollection, aren't they at the bottom of the stairs, not the top? The one bathroom upstairs.
It was at the top.
Is it at the top of the stairs or?
Well, at the top of the stairs, but you go in, you go across, you come up, if I remember correctly, you come up the stairs.
Yeah.
There's a walkway from the door from the front of the building, and then the bathroom's on the other side of that area. So it's.
Okay,
on
I
the
couldn't
opposite-
remember if
It's on the
the,
opposite wall of the stairway, I believe.
I couldn't remember if there was a stairwell, yet another set of stairs between the bathroom and the main part of the church.
I didn't think so.
I don't
No?
believe so.
Okay, good. Okay, that makes it easier.
I don't remember that.
No,
Yeah, I
actually
have
have
trouble
some-
picturing it. I think you're right. I think the stairs that I'm thinking that comes up between them is actually, it's from that north entrance. There's a stairwell up to where the bathroom and the main church hall is, and there's a stairwell down to the basement.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so then that makes it easier. I just wanted to make sure we had at least one that you could get to for somebody in a wheelchair could easily, essentially just roll right into it, so. So what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna try to put together the agreement. I'm gonna still work to see if I can get some kind of language. It won't, I know the school doesn't want to do any kind of covenant, any kind of binding things, but I would like to get language in there that basically says that, this is being done with the understanding that we will be able to use their parking facility when it's available for our events, something to that effect.
I thought I might have some pictures. I don't have that.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I had one other question
Oh,
on
sorry.
that. Did they find any asbestos in there that we might have to worry about or not?
None that they could find.
Okay.
Doesn't
Thank you.
mean there isn't stuff in like mastic, but with that, as long as you're not peeling it up, it doesn't matter. There was no free, they were doing getting the lead paint testers, they'll do that, but it did not appear, based on just the thickness and texture of the paint, did not appear to be lead paint. And the type of asbestos that gives you the problem is some of the pipe wrap as it deteriorates. They did not see any of that. But like I said, there might be stuff in the mastic, where there's tile. The one thing they did note is from what they could see, they thought the furnace for the main church was undersized.
Okay.
And they don't know if they were just missing something. But they thought that it's possible we might need to increase the amount of heat that's in there. I don't know. They did note that neither of them had air conditioning.
I was about to
We
ask
kind of
that
knew
next.
that going in.
Right.
Whether we could do even slight, if we had to put in a new unit, if they're forced air systems, I see no reason not to put in an air conditioned unit, but you're never going to get to, with the building that big, it's going to be more dehumidifier than it is going to be air conditioner. But I will say there's a big difference between, 83 and 99% humidity and 83 and 60% humidity. So, like I said, we'll take a look at that. But, the good news is from a cost standpoint, there wasn't anything noticeable that was going to be a really big cost.
Great.
Oh, Stonefield Muse. Becky mentioned that you had asked about Stonefield Muse. So they did complete the work. Is that correct, Craig? Could you come up to a mic and just address where we are with Stonefield?
Good evening, everyone. Craig Eckert, Deputy Town Supervisor. The work on the punch list has been completed. The only thing remaining is the record drawings still.
The what?
They're called record drawings. They're as-built. So after everything is built, the engineer has to go back out, locate exactly the catch basins and manholes, measure down for locations, inverts, depths, that kind of fun stuff, and then respond back in a drawing that gets approved by Roland. And we take acceptance of that record drawing so that it's a as-built drawing.
If we give them their money back before we get the as-built, we'll never get them.
And they've been working on those for 2 years that I'm aware of. And it usually takes about 2 months.
Right. I was going to ask about timing.
Yeah, so the only there was some issue with the one shared driveway but that's a private road, not it's never going to be dedicated. But
The gentleman at the end of the private drive is very upset about the condition of that road. It's not unsafe. We've taken a look at it for safety from the building and the fire department. He doesn't like that it's rough, but it's a private road. If it's not unsafe, there's not a whole lot we're going to do. And the owner has stated that, I mean, they were building a new home, and it's got to be pretty close to built. They were starting that last fall. As soon as we gave them back their ability to start the project up again, they were building another home on one of those lots. They were going to fix that road after their construction equipment was through it. That was at least the comment we got. I haven't had a chance to follow through with that in the spring. I will.
But to Craig's point, from a private road, that's up to them. There is a section of town code for private roads, parking lots, anything that creates an unsafe condition. We can do something similar like we did with those two properties that needed the cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
We could have a public hearing at the town board and essentially force the property owner of the private road or private parking lot to make it a safe condition. But like I said, as Craig pointed out, it's not a safety issue. It's not a smooth road right now, but not to the point where it creates unsafe.
They did mill up what we call rebates, and they prepped the road for what I thought was going to be pavement when they paved the rest of the road. They just held off from doing it.
Right. Which, if you know, if you've ever seen what construction vehicles can do to a smooth, finished road surface, it's understandable why.
Yeah, it's not breaking apart. It's still the binder with some rebates milled into it, so it's safe.
So with a private road like that, that's a shared drive, who does have possession of that? Is that shared between the two properties?
I believe there's three properties that share it. They're kind of flag lots off of that private drive.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they're responsible for plowing it. They're responsible,
They have to split the cost of.
Yeah, they can either, a lot of times they'll bring in a plowing service. Sometimes I've had, like where my father-in-law lived, he used to clear the road.
He did.
Just because he'd like to.
My uncle does that out on his in Chile.
Right.
Sometimes they'll have a dollar amount set up that everybody throws into the kitty.
Right.
But when it's sold, there's actually a deed restriction that says it's a private road and it's shared by the different parties, so.
So the one homeowner who's been there for quite a while still wants the top coat and wants that road finished.
Right.
But just like we've talked about, it's construction, and can't imagine the owner wants to put through paving that road and then destroying it or putting damage to it with the construction equipment.
Yeah,
Okay, any other old business?
thank you.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from October 26, 2020's Town Board Workshop.
Second,
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Hi.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So unless there's anything else, I'll make a motion that we adjourn to executive session. The plan will be to adjourn the meeting directly from executive session. So we will not need to continue with the streaming of the meeting.
Second.
Yeah, Craig?
You know, if we wanted to chat real quick about Chick-fil-A.
Oh, did anyone want an update on Chick-fil-A based off
Sure, go
old
ahead.
business?
Well, I just I passed over the plans through the supervisor this afternoon. They have been more than willing to acquiesce to anything we've asked of. The Captain Fay and I have met out there a couple of times with their liaisons and et cetera, and come up with the plan that you see, which still needs one small change to it. But after the fifth rendition, we're doing well. The paperwork doesn't always follow the communications. Sometimes when there's 20 people all on a phone call at once. They are opening Thursday. The sheriff's department will be out there, and everything else is pretty much covered. We're going to see what it does.
Right.
We've attacked it as much as we can, and hopefully we've prepared as much as possible and, taken into account what we need to.
And I forwarded that
Yes.
stuff onto you guys,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was all done
Yep.
when the project was approved.
Well, again, the
Well-
preliminary plan was,
Right.
So,
but
well,
as you
quite-
get, there was no COVID back then.
I don't know
Right.
what they mean.
What's that?
I'm not you know, you got cars pulling up to collect the food now versus cars parking there for.
Understood,
Right.
but also at the time, we didn't know what the state of various other things were gonna be, and
And quite honestly, they thought that too, and I had to, correct them from that.
Yeah, it's good
That
to
was
follow
we had a direction as to the fact that telling them in the beginning that we wanted all that traffic to queue through the parking lot, but that didn't include locations of actual employees, Monroe County Sheriff officers, what the signs were going to say, where they were going to go.
Right.
We all added a lot to that in this communication going through, but in the beginning, I did want them notified that we were going to pull that traffic all the way through that plaza.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't going to be something that I sprung on them. They went back to that too. They said, well, look, we've already agreed to all of this. No, we agreed to a preliminary concept of the path, and then everything else had to be worked out specifically later.
Yep.
So they originally also came back again with a plan that showed no traffic control. They wanted all entrances wide open.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
right,
So we,
That's why I said you had the plan.
right.
No, it's good to have clear communications all the way through.
so the only thing that they wanted, a couple of message boards. The state has kind of balked at that, quite honestly, unfortunately. We're going to see what we can do outside the right of way.
Okay.
I thought there was one that we could do, or is there just not enough time? That we did get a response from the state that if we do it under our auspices,
If they're outside of the right of way,
oh, they wanted them outside the right of way?
right, then they don't need the permit. They don't want it in the median for the westbound traffic, which is not the best location. The median is the best location.
Right.
So they want it up on the north side. And that's, probably a good couple hundred feet east.
Right.
Once you get it out of the trees,
Mm.
you don't want it behind trees. So it's actually talking to Captain Fay this afternoon was the fourth location. We only have 3 available right now, which is the other snafu to it.
Right.
Okay.
The fourth one is possibly going to become available through Comet soon. And that'll be the 4th place. So we've worked it all out. The captain and I will be out there Thursday morning, first thing, just to make sure. And then double check on everything and be able to make changes as it depends on if it heats up or slows down.
Right.
I want them to have a grand opening. Everybody does.
Right.
No, that's Denny's.
Was that Denny's?
Grand Slam is Denny's.
Use the slogan from Denny's, he said.
Even the interior pickup, Mike, has to go through the drive-through traffic. There's no other way to manage. I asked them, they could respond any way they wanted and how they intended to manage that traffic separately. But again, they just wanted to bring them in any entrance. There was
Right.
no way, there's
So
no stacking.
we
there's
stuck
no
to our
queuing.
guns in that regards.
Yeah.
That one entrance, that's the exit only.
If they want to bring them in through the LA Fitness, what I'm calling the LA Fitness entrance, the front side, if they want their Grubhub or something to be on 4-way flashers and that's how they announce that they're picking up interior, then they can direct them interior, but they still have to go down through that southern entrance. They're not going to be able to go through Smashburger or that right in, right out at Jefferson. So they didn't come up with a better plan. Their plan was to just leave them in the drive-through lane, queue them through like everybody else. They're planning on 2 cars a minute through. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine there's going to be a whole lot of wait. So,
Be
And there's
interesting.
no interior, just exterior, just drive-through.
no, they are accepting interior pickup. And that's primarily, I think, like the Grubhubs and et cetera that will do that.
But if you were yourself going there, you couldn't pull up and go in and.
And make an order.
There's
They're not taking orders interior, they're just doing pickup.
Okay,
Yeah, right. Yeah, it'll be the third-party delivery services
right,
that will be using the pickup interior.
right. I know Taco
That's
Bell's
smart
doing
under
the
these
same thing.
circumstances.
Oh, see,
It is, but it's kind of confusing. If I was already waiting in line, why not just go through the drive-through?
see now,
Yeah.
now, Lisa, you said Taco Bell's doing, is it for like Grubhub or for all? Because
No, I don't know if it's for Grubhub. I just know because my daughter wanted Taco Bell. We went through, and we thought, oh, the line's really long. We'll just go in and grab it and leave and you can't get.
You can't.
No, that's what I was gonna say. You can,
Yeah,
I went over there to pick up a huge order for a bunch of kids one night,
Mhm.
and that was about 2 months ago, and I had to wait. First
You
thing,
had
the
to still
traffic
go
was
through?
actually stopped on Jefferson Road.
Yeah.
And I was gonna mention to you that maybe somebody should talk to Taco Bell about doing the same thing, that
Right.
any pre-orders or any other, Grubhub doesn't have to, it was a 20-minute wait.
yeah, I was.
The good
surprised.
news is there will be a second Taco Bell location.
There you go.
Yeah.
They're approved. They haven't started yet.
I know. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, you know, it's a good thing because when I was there that one time, they were down Jefferson, so they were blocking Taco Bell.
That's
You
what
can imagine Chick-fil-A on the other side.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
And then Dairy Queen is always nuts.
Mhm.
right.
I mean, their lines are always.
Yeah, but
out.
again, thankfully Dairy Queen's all interior. It doesn't ever
Right.
spill
Center
out.
Plaza.
They don't spill out on Jefferson.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So we've managed this as best as we can. I think we're on top of it.
Thanks for the update.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, the good news is that people are still going to establishments, so
Right.
that the people are still able to get money and have jobs and those kind of things.
Thank
And
you.
guess what? If it's too busy, I don't go. You're not gonna get that today. I'm not getting in that line.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, then I will, hearing no objection, we are going to adjourn to executive session. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.